All right, back to the action. Shelbyville and Garrison, the 2-0 Garrison Bulldogs, will welcome the 1-0 Shelbyville Dragons to Bulldog Stadium, a big 2A district contest. Garrison, on their first drive, give the ball to Omarion Raspberry, who breaks a tackle, makes another nice move, then finishes with a stiff arm. Get out of my way. 6-0 Bulldogs. Then Shelbyville answers the play that you would normally see in your own backyard. The quarterback, DJ Barnes, scrambles from one side to the other. He escapes a tackle and sees a man way down the field on 2nd Street. It's nearly intercepted. The ball falls right into the hands of Dylan Parker, who secures it, takes it in for the touchdown on an unbelievable play. Garrison will continue to put up points and lead comfortably at the half, 35-7, 49-14, the win. Now, the